going on, fellow growers? Andrew from Tail Waggin Farms. Today I want to go over on how to start a garden. So what we're going to be looking at is where to place a garden to have the best success and have the most bountiful harvest. And we're going to try to avoid some of the pitfalls that I made in the past, such as forgetting to put water or a fence or any of that, and try to get you to avoid the dismal failures that I had. I remember our first garden. It was a couple of containers back on the patio, and that feeling of getting our first cucumber or those cherry tomatoes. Oh, the cherry tomatoes, they were so good. And that feeling of accomplishment, and I was hooked. So I hope I can get you guys started and you can experience that feeling too, and we can get growing together. So the first thing we need to figure out is how we want to grow all of these plants. Here at Tail Waggin Farms, we utilize a variety of different types of methods of growing. Up here right now is the raised garden beds that's used mostly for my vegetables and a couple of little flowers here and there. The other side of the fence is Kim's cut flower area that we grow in ground. On the other side over here, we have an in-ground area that's used for peppers. We do utilize in-ground methods for fruit. On the other side of the fence over there, we have blueberries along the fence line and fruit trees around the yard that we get a little bit of a harvest from. We also utilize containers here at Tail Waggin Farms for stuff that's not as hardy, like our citrus trees or our tender herbs like Mexican oregano or pineapple sage. You just have to take a look at what your situation is. Maybe an in-ground garden bed would be best for you, or maybe some raised garden beds. Maybe it's just some containers on a patio or a balcony, or even just a sunny window inside that you put a couple of pots next to. Whatever your situation, know that you can get growing too and grow some sort of food or flowers. Now, for all my apartment, townhome, condo, and city dwellers, you have options too. We didn't forget about you. You can grow things in a few pots along a sunny window or on the balcony. Another option is look up community gardens. You can rent an allotment to grow your food or your flowers. Or you can ask around if you have a condo association. Ask if there's a common area where maybe you can throw a couple pots with some stuff in, or a rooftop that you can put some containers on. Just ask around. There's some options, and if none of those pan out, you can still grow stuff inside. You can use grow lights to grow microgreens or sprouts, or we use the indoor hydroponic systems like an AeroGarden. They work great to grow herbs or lettuce or leafy greens. So don't despair. Even if you don't have a yard, there's ways for you to grow too. The first variable, and arguably the most important, is how much sunlight your yard receives during the day. Ideally, most fruits and vegetables require at least 6 hours of sunlight a day. Sometimes you can get away with a little less depending on what you're growing. What we want to do is look around our yard and see what areas are in the sun the most during the day. As the growing season progresses towards the equinox, the sun's going to get a little higher in the sky, so that'll give us a little more light in certain areas of the yard. Look around and see where shadows are cast, and you might find spots with a little bit of afternoon shade, which can be beneficial for some plants. Sometimes the ideal spot in your yard might be among your landscaping. I've been known to sneak in some fruit or vegetable plants within the landscaping in front of the house. Pepper plants and things like Swiss chard and certain leafy greens work really well for this, as they blend in and give a nice aesthetic. And I have also been known to eat some of the flowers, like these pansies. They're delicious. Next variable I want to go over is the soil. Time is now to get a soil test done, sooner rather than later. Contact your local agricultural extension and see if they have soil test kits available. As a side note, Agricultural extensions are a great resource to find out what grows well in your area. What the soil test will tell us is what nutrients are in the soil, like how much organic matter's in there, what the pH is, and it'll give us recommendations on how to make the soil better. One example of this is our first couple years we had issues with our tomatoes with blossom end rot. And before I got a comprehensive soil test done, I just kept adding calcium to try to fix the problem. Turns out that the soil was too acidic, the pH was too low. So the issue was that the tomatoes could not uptake the calcium that was in the soil because of the pH. It recommended I added a certain amount of lime. I did that, our problem went away. Our first step with the soil is we want to dig a hole about 5 or 6 inches deep with our trowel. Get down in that root zone and look. What's that soil look like underneath? Is it sandy? Is it clay? Is it nice black and fluffy soil that makes every gardener jealous? For us, we have a lot of clay in our soil. So you can now take some water, dump some water in the hole, see how fast it drains, see if it sits there and stays in a puddle. Most plants like well-draining soil, so we can amend the soil to change these things. This soil initially was very hard clay, and through years of adding compost and other amendments, it's getting a little better now, where it's a little easier soil to manage. This is one huge advantage of raised garden beds, is that you can use the soil that you want for the plants that you intend to grow. Unfortunately, a downside of that is the cost. Soil is expensive to buy in bulk, and it's heavy. So moving it up a hill to fill up raised garden beds can be a little rough on the back. The next thing we want to take into consideration is what the weather typically does to our yard. We have a low spot that runs across the entirety of our yard, and during heavy rains, it floods pretty bad. This area right here will have 8 to 10 inches of water in it that's flowing fast. If we tried to put an in-ground garden bed here, all the plants would just wash away. If you've been in your home for a while, you could kind of get a lay of the land on where the soggy spots are, or where the spots that, if there's a drought, get dry, cracked, and just nothing grows. We want to use this information to kind of figure out where we want to orient our garden so that we can take advantage of these features. Over the years of growing, you might find that areas of your yard stay warmer than other areas. You get a little microclimate that will allow you to grow stuff that's outside of your hardiness zone. We have one on the side of the house that's at least 10 degrees warmer, just the way the brick is. There's other areas of the yard that get frost when the rest of the yard doesn't. So we have to be careful about what we plant there. Our property here has all sorts of different types of these areas, and soggy areas and dry areas, and just over the years we've learned how to take advantage of it. Another commonly overlooked variable is accessibility. Often, we'd wish for our gardens to be right outside our back door, easily accessible with water right next to it and some beautiful black fluffy soil. Unfortunately, we can't all have that. I know we sure don't here. What I like to do is, for some of the more commonly used stuff, such as our cooking herbs, we have containers right outside our back door that we use to easily access what we need while we're cooking. It also happens to be right next to my pizza oven and my griddle, so that's convenient as well. Another important part of accessibility is access to water. Dragging a hose 200 feet to water your garden is definitely no fun, especially in the heat of the summer. We've installed irrigation throughout the yard, but this isn't cheap and it's a lot of work. So try to lay out your garden in an area where you can easily get water to it. Most importantly, we need to remember the garden should be a place that we go to relax. It's the old proverbial, take time to stop and smell the roses. Not to be too cliche there, but We want to be able to enjoy the garden. Getting our hands out there in the dirt can have a pretty therapeutic effect. I know it relieves stress for me to be out there working on the plants and to get the vegetables and fruits and the pretty flowers from all our hard work. If the garden's accessible, it'll be a lot easier for us to be there, and we'll be a lot more likely to be out there relaxing. So I guess what I'm trying to say is not all of us will have the perfect spot to start a garden, but we all have the capabilities to be able to grow some stuff for ourselves. Whether you're on a large lot out in the country, or a small suburban lot, or even in an apartment with a balcony or just a sunny window, we all have the capabilities to grow some food or some flowers. Well, thank you for coming out to Tailwagon Farms. I hope these tips have helped you figure out where you can put a garden on your land or even in your apartment. So if you have any questions, please leave it down in the comments, like and subscribe, and hope to see you next time, and happy growing.